John Mahama there speaking at the 24th Business Conference in Harvard a month ago, and this has highlighted again the controversies around Ghana's COVID-19 spend. There have been many civil society organizations and individuals that have called on government to audit these funds and to give the figures as to how these funds were expended. And as we speak now, that has not been done. In the last few months, we've had contradicting figures from various sector ministers, including the president himself and the vice president as well on this. My colleague Dennis Wedam, he's with the News Planning Department, is joining me. Dennis, you've been studying the figures when it comes to the contradictions that have been playing up with respect to Ghana's COVID spend. What did you find?
Well, so let's begin from the President's State of the Nation address, which was held on March 30. The President had indicated that information available to him from the Ministry of Finance indicated that the state had spent 17.7 billion cedis, and that's some 4.6% of GDP, on COVID, right from the time it started till date.
Okay.
But even before that time, the 2021 budget, which was read by the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs and then the Majority Leader, in that particular budget, it was indicated that the state spent 19 billion cedis to attend to COVID-19. So in a space of 1 year, from 19 billion, they were back to 17.7 billion. And mind you, that 19 billion also came up strongly when government was making a case for why it had introduced new levies, including the COVID-19 recovery levy. Information Minister is on record to have said that the reason for which we were introducing that particular levy was because the state had spent 19 billion cedis in tackling COVID, for which reason we needed to pay. You recall that was the time there was conversation about you have given us free water, now we're supposed to pay back for the water. So then that 19 billion was on record. The president came back in 2022 to tell us that we had spent 17.7 billion cedis. It also raises questions as to what exactly the figure is. It's also part of the reasons the minority in parliament will have on record the ranking member of the Health Committee, Minta Kando, raised concerns that his side of the House had filed a motion to have the COVID figures audited, just so they know exactly how much has been spent on that score. Also, we also know that Send Ghana, for instance, has also been strong on that. For them, they also allege that there have been some inconsistencies when it comes to government reporting on how much has been spent on COVID. So when you put all of these figures together, you would notice that 17.7 billion as quoted by the President from the Ministry of Finance, 19 billion in the 2021 budget, and then that 19 billion also reiterated by the Information Minister, Kojo Opong Nkrumah. So when you look at all the figures, you don't seem to get a clear picture. So when you hear the former president speak about unaudited numbers, and then he now believing that it may have been used for campaign
activities.
You seem to also question what really are the numbers, because we have different numbers been flying about. 17.7 billion now. In 2021, we had 19 billion, and questions have been asked where and how much exactly we spent on COVID.
And we've been doing some checks with respect to Send Ghana and their call for, transparency in terms of the expenditure that has been used in this regard. They've told us that they are also, in their own regard, trying to find the details and especially the figures as they've been, because just as many of us are confused, Send Ghana is as well not able to get the accurate figures because government is not giving what they say is the actual figure. So we've been making an effort to speak to the Presidential Advisor on Health. We've actually been speaking to him. We'll be getting through the responses that he's been giving us subsequently. But Dennis, so going forward, we know some of these civil society groups and individuals have been calling for audits. Are they ready, for example, to trigger processes that will compel the states, for example, to make these information?
Well, some of them have indicated to us that they really would go all out to get the figures out, because they think that it's in the national interest that we get to know exactly how much we spent on COVID. Much as they sympathize with the whole situation of COVID, they also believe, so when you listen to their narrative, they feel that it was also an opportunity around the world, not just in Ghana, for other people to take advantage of the situation to get away with monies. They do not want that to happen in Ghana. So they are ready to, for instance, use the Office of the Special Prosecutor to also push the minority to also trigger some processes in Parliament, among other things, to have the figures unraveled to Ghanaians.
Thank you. Dennis Wedam is my colleague with the News Planning Department, bringing us those details. And trust that we'll be getting through to some of these individuals so we can get through to them, so we understand exactly how these funds were expended and what the expenditure items have been over the period since COVID broke out sometime in 2020. Meanwhile, government has challenged former President John Mahama to publish documents supporting his claims, in which he accuses the presidency of mismanaging COVID-19 funds and using them, in fact, for election campaigning purposes.
For anybody especially for a former head of state who has been in government before, who has been a leader of this country before, should say this at an international forum. To me, it is something that should be condemned. If you get such international forum and you are speaking about your country, it's a time for you to let people know what Ghana has done so far as COVID-19 is concerned, and not to speculate. I'll call it speculation because I don't know where the figures that he's talking about came from. Secondly, I'm not too sure which funds he's talking about for election 2020. If you remember, that was the time that we even needed funds most from the people of the country. So I'm very surprised that such a statement comes from him. I don't know where he's getting his figures from. I don't know whom he contacted before making this statement. I don't know which documents were used. So I'm sure, and I'm very certain that the Minister of Finance will come out to tell Ghanaians and the whole world what we use the money for. I know that we had some funds from the World Bank which came in tranches, and when World Bank, and he knows, as a former head of state, he knows the system that goes through with other loans or grants from multilaterals and bilaterals.